Welcome to OkState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, today we have a very, very special guest. Play-by-play voice of the Arizona State Sun Devils, Tim Healey, joins OkState Daily. Tim, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Casey. Good to see you. It's a great picture of Boone Pickens right behind you. Good view of what it'll be like. Although, from what I hear, it's going to be a little bit damp on Saturday. I wish it would be as nice as it looks in that picture there.
Yeah, absolutely. It has not rained a lot here lately, so we're begging for rain. We hope it stays off long enough for the 3 hours for the two teams to play football on Saturday night. But hey, 27 years behind the mic for the Arizona State Sun Devils. You've seen a lot of great in all different sports. You do multiple sports, so talk about what got you to Arizona State behind the mic and your time there for the 27 years.
Yeah, well, technically, if you want to count my previous life, I was a TV sports anchor, and I did Arizona State's television play-by-play for 10 years before that. In fact, I actually had a trip. My first trip to Stillwater was as the television announcer for the 1991 season opener, which ASU won 30-3. So if you count those 10 years, I've been broadcasting Arizona State sports now for 37 years. And as I said in the beginning of my career, I was a television news and sports anchor, and hopscotched around the country and eventually landed in Phoenix in 1983 as a local TV sports anchor. And eventually, as I said, 5 years later, in 1988, was able to get into a role where I did TV play-by-play for the Sun Devils. We did selected home football or home and away football and selected men's basketball games on television for 10 years. A lot of the football games, unfortunately, were tape delayed back in the day. But in any event, I did that for 10 years. And then in 1998, when ASU's longtime radio voice, the late Tom Dillon, was forced to give up the job, I was hired as his replacement. And the first year I did it while freelancing for my TV station. And then in the second year of my tenure, in 1999, ASU bid out its radio rights and awarded it to one of those independent rights holders. And they wanted to hire the play-by-play talent as a full-time employee, and that was the answer to my professional dreams. And so ever since 1999, I've been the radio voice in a full-time role. And as you indicated, I also, and I guess there's a handful of us around the country, but we're only about 4, I think, in the Pac-12, in the final year of the Pac-12, that were like me, radio guys who did 3 sports for their schools. I do Sun Devil men's basketball, and I do Arizona State baseball as well, and I've called several games between the Cowboys and the Devils in baseball out here. And it's my understanding that we will be coming out to Stillwater in baseball season this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing your new ballpark. I've not been there for a baseball or basketball game, but this will be my 3rd football game at Boone Pickens. As I said, I did the game 30 years ago on TV, and 2 years ago when the Cowboys won in week 2 in what proved to be, I guess, the penultimate game of the Herm Edwards era at Arizona State.
Moving to the Big 12, how has that been for Arizona State?
Well, the word I've used for the last year and a half to describe the whole process is bittersweet. Right. Because, we were in the Pac-12 for 45 years, and I lived here and have been a part of the program for the majority of those 45 years. And last year was the bitter part of the bittersweet. It was like a farewell tour, if you will, in all 3 sports. Last time ever going to Husky Stadium in Seattle, where, by the way, I spent a year and a half as a television sportscaster in the late 1980s at a TV station in Seattle. So a small slice of my family history is in Seattle. So, not knowing if or when we'll ever get back up there, last trip to Eugene, Oregon, Corvallis, Oregon, even places that you would figure that we've gone so frequently in the past, like Los Angeles and the Bay Area. Who knows when we're going to, if or when we're going to play games in those cities, at those venues, against those schools, and any of the 3 sports again. So it was like one big grand farewell tour. In fact, the last Pac-12, the next to last, I guess, Pac-12 conference event I did was a baseball 3-game series at Stanford, Mother's Day weekend, which we were able to sweep. And we had a nice pregame conversation with Stanford's longtime baseball coach, David Esker, who previously coached at Cal and played at Stanford. Wonderful guy and a terrific baseball coach. And he's been, as they say in the radio biz, a friend of the program. He's been a friend of our broadcasts. He's listened to us and enjoyed the work that we do broadcasting Sun Devil baseball, and is always willing to come on for a pregame interview when we visit or play Stanford. And we talked to him a lot about, the end of the Pac-12 conference. And he just flat out said, Tim, I don't like it. I don't like it. This didn't happen. And I don't, I've told everybody, this did not have to happen. Better leadership at the university president and conference level could have avoided this, in my opinion. But be that as it may, that's several pay scales above me. So, last year was kind of the bitter part of it, saying farewell to all these grand venues like, the LA Coliseum and Autzen Stadium and, all the different arenas, Pauley Pavilion. Yeah. We had the honor of playing UCLA in the final Pac-12 regular season men's basketball game the week before the Pac-12 tournament in March at Pauley Pavilion. And, not knowing if or when we'll ever get to any of these places again. So that ended. And then, to me, the page turned and the script flipped. And the sweet part of the bittersweet started taking place and taking hold when I went to Big 12 Football Media Day in Las Vegas in early July. And that was kind of the welcome to the Big 12 moment I felt for Arizona State. Officially, we didn't become members of the Big 12 until I think it was the first week of August. But that, to me, is what felt like the official, we're part of the group, welcome to the Big 12. It was a nicely done event at Allegiant Stadium. And I found out very quickly that the Big 12 has a very close-knit fraternity of its radio play-by-play broadcasters. Yeah, they even have this huge mass texting thread that they quickly involved me in. And I was invited to go out to dinner with the Big 12 play-by-play guys in Vegas in July. And I think there were only about 5 of us that actually were able to make it. But I met Brian Estridge from TCU, Wyatt Thompson from Kansas State,
the Hall of Famer,
Greg Wrubell from BYU, who I've met in the past, as well as John Morris at Baylor. I've known J-Mo a few years. So, but that was fun. That was great, and it's a close-knit fraternity of play-by-play announcers in the conference, and they made me and I think my fellow colleagues, Brian Jeffries at Arizona, Bill Riley at Utah, and Mark Johnson at Colorado feel very welcome to the group right away. And so that has been the exciting part. And now delving into our first season as a member of the Big 12 and into Big 12 conference play and making now these trips. Our first 2 trips have been to Texas Tech and to Cincinnati. Both of them, unfortunately for the Sun Devils, have been losses, but good experiences. I've done games before in Lubbock, but that was my first visit ever to UC a couple weeks ago. And as I said, I've been to Stillwater before, and then our last 2 road games, one of them is at Arizona, the rivalry game, but 2 weeks from now we go to K-State, and I'm looking forward to that and catching up with Wyatt Thompson and just hoping it's not too terribly cold in mid-November in the Little Apple there. But it's been exciting, and I think that's kind of the feeling most of the Sun Devil fans, Sun Devil Nation, ASU athletics administrators and coaches, they all have the same thing. I think, you hate to see the relationship with the Pac-12. You hate to see the Pac-12 itself end for all intents and purposes. It still exists as a 2-team league right now with Washington State and Oregon State. But on the one hand, you hate to see that come to an end. But on the other hand, it's exciting to be a part of a league and like the Big 12 that is, what a great landing spot it's proven to be for Arizona State. And football's been great, and it's going to be something else in basketball. It is by far and away the best basketball conference in the country, and it isn't too shabby in baseball either. So looking forward to all that coming up.
100%. I was super excited to get Arizona State in the fold. And hey, you mentioned if you're a transfer portal guy, Tempe, Arizona is like a great place to land because you would have to think it's a great destination with the weather and how beautiful it is. So is that kind of how that's viewed by Arizona State fans?
Well, I think Arizona State will still recruit the state of California. Don't be mistaken about that. But they have established a pretty strong and successful recruiting footprint in the state of Texas, because I think Texas may have the third, highest number of Arizona State alums behind Arizona and California in the nation. And in fact, we played, how interesting to this year, our first two road games were in Texas. We had a Thursday night game where we beat Texas State in mid-September, and then 9 days later we played at Texas Tech. And they have established a very strong recruiting foothold. Brian Carrington, who is our cornerbacks coach, was formerly on staff at TCU, and he has great recruiting ties in the state of Texas. Coach Dillingham himself has worked aggressively in the state of Texas. And I think from a geographic standpoint, even though Arizona State and Arizona being in the Pac-12 made sense geographically, unlike some of the other results of this conference realignment, like the astounding geographical anomaly of having Cal and Stanford be in the Atlantic Coast Conference, or having Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA playing in a largely Midwest league in the Big Ten. Having Arizona and Arizona State in the Big 12, to me, kind of makes a little bit of geographic sense because it gravitates us towards the Midwest and Texas. We're back in the same league with BYU, where many moons ago we were colleagues and competitors in the Western Athletic Conference. And BYU and Utah, now their quote-unquote holy war is truly a conference matchup. And I think they play their football game a week from Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, in Salt Lake City. But geographically, it makes some sense. And so from that standpoint, Arizona State, I think, is trying to establish a bit of a national recruiting footprint, but definitely Texas is a big part of their recruiting landscape. And there's no question that, that's going to continue to grow for sure.
You had a great experience with the basketball team, and that was going to play Duke. Bobby Healey, your basketball coach, got to go back home. You guys got to go to the Children's Hospital. It sounded like it was a great experience, except maybe whenever the actual game started, but that whole experience sounded really nice.
Yeah, well, just a quick, I didn't have to miss a football game because we had our bye week. And it's interesting you said that, though, because I did miss only my fifth football game in 27 years. Earlier this month when we played Kansas on October 5th, I had back surgery 2 days prior. So I'm basically now a little more than 4 weeks removed from having back surgery. I had a procedure called a hemilaminectomy, which is designed to deal with pain shooting down my left leg from sciatica, and it's helped quite a bit. Although I'm still in the recovery process, but getting back to last weekend, like you said, it was a great experience. That John Shire, the head coach at Duke, and Bobby Healey kind of worked together to come up with this idea to play this exhibition game at Cameron Indoor Stadium this past Sunday night, with the proceeds benefiting Duke Children's Hospital. Now, as you know, in college basketball, most of the preseason exhibition games that take place are kind of done literally behind closed doors. They don't admit fans. You have to work days later to get a box score from these games. They're kind of played, and I honestly can't tell you what the reason is for that. Maybe somebody else knows. I don't know why it has to be done in such a secretive environment. But if you play a game that benefits charity, then you're in a situation where you can admit fans and sell tickets and raise money. And that's what they did. And of course, having one of their all-time iconic great players coming back to Cameron Indoor for the first time as Arizona State's head coach. This is Bobby's 10th year as the head coach of the Sun Devils. The ticket sold out in about 20 minutes, I think, and as they always do at Duke. But it was a great weekend. And from Arizona State's side, they sold a few sponsorships. A long-time donors and sponsors purchased seats on the team charter and the opportunity to basically be with the team for the weekend. And that money is going to help ASU's NIL initiatives. So we took a chartered aircraft out on last Friday, to North Carolina, and then on Saturday morning they gave us a tour of Cameron Indoor Stadium and how impressive that is, their Hall of Fame area, and see Bobby's jersey hanging on display in their Hall of Fame area, and just all the mementos of Duke's great basketball history. And then right after that tour, we got to watch the Sun Devils practice. And Coach Krzyzewski was there to watch his former great player. In fact, I was lucky to catch it on my cell phone the moment when Coach K and Bobby embraced and saw each other for the first time in quite a while. And then that evening, they had a reception at a nearby hotel. We stayed at a really nice hotel on the Duke campus, the JB Duke Hotel, and about half a mile from there is another beautiful facility, the Washington Duke Hotel and Golf Club, and it was there that they had the reception, mainly for the ASU. Coach K came, and I was able to get him off in a side room and sit down get a nice 5-minute taped conversation that we heard on our pregame show. And he was just so wonderful and gracious and engaging, down to earth, talking about his grandkids and how he has 3 daughters. He and Mickey, his wife, have 3 daughters and 10 grandchildren, and they all live within a 10 minutes drive of where they live there in the Durham area. And I told him that I identify with that because I have 2 adult kids and 1 grandchild, and my 2 kids and my granddaughter live within 15 minutes of me. And I can't imagine what it would be like for my wife and me if our granddaughter lived out of state. Just be devastating. So it's just so I identified with that. But he was great. He had a great conversation with him, and visited with Bobby as well. And then and I was also fortunate because I happen to have I have 3 younger sisters, my only 3 siblings, and 2 of them live in the Raleigh area, and one of them and her husband came, and I'm Catholic, so I went to Mass on Sunday morning in Durham, and then they picked me up and we went out for pizza. I haven't seen my sister in, jeepers, I don't know how long it's been. I think last year I went to a family wedding, but I very seldom get to see my family, having grown up on the East Coast like I did. But so it was a great weekend, and then the game happened, and Arizona State got annihilated, and it was embarrassing. But and I felt bad for Bobby because how badly he wanted to have his team, perform. But the irony is he has a very talented team this year. Arizona State generally gets a 5-star recruit in basketball maybe once a decade. Right. And this year, Bobby has 2 of them on his roster. A 6'9" forward who is actually from the Raleigh area named Jaden Quaintance, who is ranked by one of the services as the #1 center in the country, decommitted from Kentucky to commit and sign with Arizona State. And Jaden was the one player who showed up against Duke. He did not look intimidated by the environment at all, and he performed relatively well. And then they have a 5-star guard from Vermont, a kid named Josan Sanin, who actually had committed to our arch rival Arizona and decommitted to join Arizona State, a 6'5" guard who can shoot. He has struggled in the first 2 preseason games, but there is talent on this Arizona State team, but Duke is just at another level. And John Shire has a team. Even though they have a lot of freshmen, they're among, their recruiting class is the #1 class in the country. Arizona State's is a top 10 class, but Duke's is #1. Of course, they have Cooper Flagg, the 6'9" forward that most people feel will be the #1 pick in the NBA draft next year. In fact, having grown up in the D.C. area, I follow all the Washington teams, and so I'm willing to admit I'm a Washington Wizards fan, and I honestly think the Wizards' whole game plan this season is to lose and lose and lose and be in the battle for that number one spot in the draft so they can draft Cooper Flagg. But Cooper Flagg is one of, I think, 4 5-star recruits in Duke's 5-man class, and the other is a 4-star. So, and they brought in some quality D1 transfers. They have a couple of veterans from last year's team, and they'll be right there in the thick of the national title race this year. But I think even though ASU got plastered in that game, decorum prevents me from actually saying what the final score was. I think they will benefit from the experience of having played that game, and I'm anxious to see how they perform. They open their season next Tuesday, November 5th, Election Day, against Idaho State here in Tempe, and I would be disappointed if they didn't put on a really good performance and bounce back from that loss at Duke. But save for the final score in the game, the rest of the weekend was just a wonderful experience.
Let's get into the football team this year. Of course, last year, you remember Oklahoma State went to Tempe, and Arizona State really controlled the game for the better part of half the game, even more than half the game probably. So I know Cam Scattaboo, he feels like this is a revenge-type game. It's a way better Arizona State team. So talk about this year's Arizona State team and the mentality coming into Stillwater.
Yeah, it is a much better team, and Cam Scattaboo is a big reason why. He was a very good player for the Sun Devils last year. In fact, he took a lot of snaps at quarterback at the end of the season. The funny thing is, somebody asked me at the beginning of the year, do you think Arizona State will be improved? And they had only one direction to go, but up, because the last 2 seasons have been the 2 worst, in the recent history of the program, 3-9 each of the last 2 years. But I told somebody the one reason why I know they're going to be a better team this year is that on opening night, they are actually going to start a quarterback at quarterback.
Yeah, right.
Because late last year, Cam Scattaboo, and in their rivalry game with Arizona that ended the season, their tight end, Jalen Conyers, who's now playing at Texas Tech because he grew up near Lubbock, they were the guys taking the snaps. And that's what Kenny had to resort to because of just the rash of injuries on his offense. But we'll get to our quarterback this year, Sam Levitt, in a moment. But Cam Scattaboo was one of the guys taking the snaps. But this year, Cam, he has just had a tremendous year. He is 4th in the Big 12 and I believe 12th nationally in rushing yardage. He's rushed for almost 850 yards on the season. He has 3 times this year been named the Big 12 Player of the Week because of monumental rushing performances, all of them in home wins over Mississippi State, Kansas, and Utah. In the Mississippi State game on September 7th, he ran for 262 yards, which is the second highest single game total in Arizona State history. And he is so much fun to watch because he is a running back who runs with an offensive lineman's mentality.
Right.
He doesn't try to avoid contact. He welcomes it because he wants to dish out as much punishment as he absorbs. And he scored a touchdown. Your viewers and listeners might want to get on YouTube or Google or wherever you get video and see if you can find his touchdown at Cincinnati 2 weeks ago, even though it came in a loss. He scored both their touchdowns on short runs. This was only a 1-yard run, but it was a run that started as a sweep to the right. He almost got tackled for a 4-yard loss, but somehow slipped out of 2 tackles, got to the pylon, and then just unloaded on a Cincinnati defender who had the game due to injury because of the hit he took from Cam Scattaboo. But that's just kind of typical and epitomizes the way that Cam plays the game. But he has just been so much fun to watch, and he is the undeniable leader of this ASU football team, and he is their heart and soul. And I think, when you look at the stats in this game, ASU has had success running the ball. They're 20th in the FBS and rush offense. And as you well know, the Cowboys have really struggled this year near the bottom of the FBS heap. I think they're 132nd out of 133 schools in run defense. And I think Cam has to have a big game on Saturday if Arizona State's going to have a chance to win, because they've got to be able to, use that statistical advantage to their actual in-game advantage and establish a run game. And any run game they establish, he's going to be a big featured part of it. But I think the Sun Devils have been kind of under the radar surprise team this year. They don't get talked about a lot because I think maybe the reason why I just did some math. They're 5-2, very good record. And when you consider that they were 3-9 each of the last 2 years, I mean, they're one win away from bowl eligibility.
Right.
And just to get bowl eligible a year after 3-9 would be remarkable. I think maybe a reason they've flown under the radar is the fact that the 5 games they have won have come against teams with a combined record of 12-28.
Right.
They had they beat Wyoming in their season opener. They were a 9-win team a year ago. The Wyoming Cowboys were, but they are really scuffling this year, 1-7. They beat Mississippi State, first time the Sun Devils ever beat an SEC team, but the Bulldogs are 1-7. They won at Texas State, which I thought would be one of the better group of 5 teams in the country. And it was a good game, and they had to rally from 2 touchdowns to win. But Texas State's had a bit of a disappointing year. They're 4-4. Then they beat Kansas, and of course, all of us in the Big 12 know that Kansas. Their 2 Big 12 wins are over Kansas and Utah, and they were 2 of the top 5 teams in the preseason poll to win the conference. But Kansas is mysteriously 2-6 with all of their late fourth quarter breakdowns and close losses. And Utah won its first 4 games, including a win in Stillwater, and now they've lost 4 in a row, including a 27-19 Friday night loss to the Sun Devils in Tempe. That still is Arizona State's best win of the year because at the time Utah was ranked 16th in the country. But that may be one of the reasons why they've flown under the radar. But I just think Kenny and his coaching staff have done a great job of very quickly reviving a program that had gone through just a couple of horrible years on the field and off the field with the NCAA investigation of the COVID era, recruiting violations and so forth. And they very quickly closed the chapter on that book. And I think the program under Kenny Dillaham's leadership has a very bright future.
Talk about your quarterback, Sam Levitt, redshirt freshman, transfer from Michigan State, was not available in the Cincinnati game, a game that you guys went on the road and lost. So obviously he is a big trigger man for this offense, as valuable as Cam Scattaboo is. But just showing that not having Sam Levitt affected this team that much. And then your receivers, I think the thing that sticks out about me is the size. Of the top 3 or 4 receivers, of course, not counting Cam Scattaboo, who is the second leading receiver on the team. Just the guys that are actually in the receiving corps, the size is what sticks out to me. The smallest guy is 6'1".
Wow. Yes. As first on Sam, he's been all that. He was. I think Kenny first established a recruiting relationship with him when Kenny was at Oregon, and Sam is from the Portland area, West Lynn, Oregon, and then he went to Michigan State, played 4 games there, but was able to redshirt, and then hit the portal with the coaching change there. And Kenny was able to get him down to Arizona State, and he was named the starter. He was clearly going to be the starter, I think, looking at spring ball and fall camp, and has just done the job magnificently for a kid, just in his second year of college football and his first year as a starter. And he has won games this year, to me, in 3 different ways. He's won some games with his arm. He's won games with his legs. He only threw for about 70-something yards against Mississippi State, but he had a couple of big runs in that game. And he's also won games with his poise. He led the Sun Devils on 2 fourth-quarter go-ahead touchdown drives, including one with 16 seconds left to beat Kansas on October 5th, and just showed great poise in doing so. And he is a guy that can make plays with his legs as well as his arm. He is Arizona State's second leading rusher on the year, and he has scored 4 rushing touchdowns. And as you said, he got a rib injury in the second quarter of the game against Utah on Friday night, October 11th, and had to go out for a series or 2. His backup, Jeff Sims, who quarterbacked last year at Nebraska, and before that 4 years at Georgia Tech, came in, and Jeff scored on a rushing touchdown a couple of plays after Sam left the ball game. And then lo and behold, third quarter, team comes out of the locker room, and there's Sam Levitt, out there playing again. but you could tell that he was not. He was kind of struggling physically because he never looked to run the football, and his running is a big part of his game.
Sure.
And he was able to quarterback the team to a victory. But it was announced the next week that he would miss the Cincinnati game, and he did. And Jeff Sims played, and Jeff was okay. He didn't put up great numbers, but his biggest issue in his time at Georgia Tech and Nebraska has been ball security.
Right.
I think last year at Nebraska he had like 6 interceptions and only 1 touchdown pass. He had some good numbers at Georgia Tech. Heck, he ran for over 1,000 yards in his career there, as well as throwing for over 4,000 yards. But at Cincinnati, he threw for about $150, ran 14 times for 52 yards, but he did not put the ball in jeopardy. He did not turn the ball over, and he was not the reason they lost that football game.
Right.
But, the little bit of breaking news I can give you as we record this podcast is that it was just a couple hours ago that Kenny confirmed that Sam will be the starter on Saturday at Oklahoma State. He's looked, they had the bye week last week. He's looked good in practice this week, and he will be back in his starting role against the Cowboys on Saturday at Boone Pickens. So, but yeah, Sam has done a really, really nice job, and the receiving core has been decent. Jordan Tyson is the kid that has emerged as Arizona State's go-to receiver. He is their leading pass catcher on the year and had a big game. Catching passes for over 100 yards against Kansas, including 2 touchdowns, including the game winner with 16 seconds left on the clock. He's got 31 receptions this year. He actually had a 100-yard receiving game at Cincinnati, 6 catches for 106 yards. And he transferred here from Colorado, where as a freshman in 2022, he nearly single-handedly beat Arizona State in a game in Boulder. As you could recall, in 2022, Colorado was horrible. That was the year before they brought in Deion Sanders. They were, I think, 1-11. And ASU struggled that year. They only won 3 games, but they won up there 42-34, and they almost lost because Jordan Tyson had caught passes for over 100 yards and had an 88-yard punt return touchdown in that game. And then he transfers to Arizona State, but sat out all of last year because of an injury he had sustained at Colorado. And this year, he has kind of gradually come on as the season has progressed. He's their best receiver. And his brother, I think it's Jalen Tyson, was a basketball star at Texas Tech, and last year transferred to California and had a terrific season at Cal, and it was a big reason why Cal beat Arizona State at home in mid-February, and then I think he ended up getting drafted into the NBA. So it's quite an athletic family. They're from the Dallas area, Allen, Texas, suburb of Dallas, where our former head coach Todd Graham used to be the head coach at Allen High School many moons ago. But Tyson, you say, is 6'1". They have a kid named Xavier Guillory, who formerly played at I believe it was Idaho State, and he is 6'2", and he's caught 12 passes this year and had a touchdown against Kansas. Xavier did not play against Cincinnati with a hamstring injury, and I think they expect him to be back. In fact, that's one thing. This bye week has done a lot of good for Arizona State because they're going to be about as healthy as they've been in a long time. One player they will not have is a very highly regarded former USC Trojan. He was a 5-star recruit to USC a couple of years ago, a running back named Raleek Brown, who has been bothered all year by a hamstring injury. And Kenny announced earlier this week that Raleek will take a medical red shirt to get that hamstring well and hopefully be back next year and be a big-time contributor. But outside of him, they're fairly healthy going into this game with Oklahoma State.
Hey, Tim Healey, this has been such a wonderful honor getting to sit and listen and talk and hear you talk about Arizona State and this game coming up Saturday and getting to meet you and getting to speak with you. So thank you so much for joining OKState Daily.
My pleasure. Anytime.